Welcome to the Bywords Show. I'm your host, Hannah Hughes. Bywords is all about equipping women for purposeful living by starting conversations, celebrating stories, and inspiring faith. In a world that applauds the hustle, I'm here to help you break free from the lies and come back to what really matters. It's time to get real, get rooted in truth, and come alive in relationship with Jesus so you can show up to each day with intention and confidence no matter where you're at in your story. Here we believe that embracing our stories brings hope, healing, and purpose to the process, and sharing our stories helps others do the same. Whether you're looking for a midweek faith refresh, practical tools for pursuing your dreams, or just need some good old-fashioned girl talk, you're in the right place. Grab your latte and let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bywords Show. So glad you're here today. Excited for another great episode. Today, we've got Natalie Hixson with us, and I'm just really excited to dive into this topic about destructive anger. And I just can't wait to hear your story, Natalie. So first of all, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today.
Well, before we get started, I would love it if you would just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am obviously Natalie. I've married my high school sweetheart. I think it's like 22 years this year we've been married. I know. And we live in Bozeman, Montana. We have three girls, age 20, 16, and 13. And yeah, and my oldest is in Tennessee going to college. So yeah, we're just busy doing the teen thing at this point and adult, I guess. Now we have an adult.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I work with moms who are really struggling with destructive anger and burnout, and we'll talk more about what those things are and look like. But yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's amazing. Well, like you said, you are a coach that specializes in helping moms work through this destructive anger, burnout, things like that, so they can actually enjoy being a wife and a mom, which I feel like
Absolutely.
is major. So I would love to know how you first got into that. Like, what initially led you down that path?
Yeah, it was actually my story. And often is the case with, I think, many entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
such, it's something that I never expected I would be doing. But here we are. It stems from my story and the destructive anger that I went through in my marriage and starting to raise children. So in the very beginning, Mike and I, when we got married, we moved in together. It was very eye-opening because um, I would start yelling at him and screaming at him when I was angry, and he would withdraw and get quiet. And I remember yelling at him one time, going, "Why won't you yell back at me?" And he's like, "That's just not what I do." And
Wow.
so that was really like, it just, kind of opened my eyes to, wow, this is the, because I grew up in a family that we yelled. That was what happened. That's when they got upset. We yelled,
Yeah.
blew up. That was it, right? And so I started to see a difference there. And it wasn't until we brought our first kiddo home, from the hospital, that it was around age 2 that I really started to see this was an increasing problem. And this is the part of the story that is very scary. It was very abusive, and I don't like to downplay that at all. I just like to preface it that way because sometimes it can come across that it's not as a big of a deal, but this is really a big deal. It's just I've shared this story so much, right, that some people may think there's a disconnect. But the other piece of that I want people to know is once you have given your life to Christ and you have received that redemption and grace, you are absolutely able to be free in these things. And like what I'm doing today is using this story to help bring other mamas who are in this place to recognize we can leave that guilt and shame at the cross and we can walk forward in grace and overcome these things. We don't have to live
Yes.
by these things, and our identity doesn't have to be in the ugly, right? It needs to be in Christ. And
Yes.
so, yeah, at 2, when my daughter was 2, Enya, my oldest, she was throwing her epic tantrums, and I was throwing my epic tantrums right alongside her. I was screaming at her, I was threatening her, belittling her. I would leave bruises on her arm and little handprints on her butt from spanking her too hard. I was a very scary, abusive person. I would hit my husband even. I would scream at him. And so he would try to step in and protect Enya when he was home, but he was working 12-hour days.
Mm.
And so it was really difficult. And that was another part of it. Like I just, it was me and Enya the whole time, and I didn't know how to overcome this. I thought that I was stuck like this. This is who I was. I have Scottish Irish blood. Yeah, I don't have red hair, but it's definitely in our family, right? It's just like it was a just part of who I was, and I couldn't overcome it. And I would pray and pray at night. I'd wake up in the middle of the night crying, like, I can't believe I'm this mom. I don't want to be this way. And then the next morning, things would continue on, and not to say that I was like this 100% of the day, but things would trigger me. Enya's tantrums would trigger me, and off we would go into another fit or a tantrum. And by the grace of God, Enya was protected. My mom lived next door actually at that time, and when I got to the point of really, really bad places where I was thinking suicide for me or, hurting her in a bad way, I would call my mom and she'd come intervene for me. So,
Mm.
but I just have to share that part of the story because there's so many people who are in that place even right now and think that they're the only ones. They look out in comparison and think, how come other moms can do this and I can't? What's wrong with me? If anybody knew what was going on at home behind closed doors, they'd take my kids away from me. It's a very scary place and a very lonely place to be. And
Mm.
and the other part of it is where we start to doubt God in that place because we think he's left us or like he doesn't see us or there's no hope for us because we keep continuing in this sin in this dark place. So there's hope though. I'm living
Yes.
proof, and my daughters are living today to prove that there is hope. And I will tell you how that happened. But first, I want to tell you the end of the story as of today. It's not the end, but where are we at today? Enya
Mm.
and I, and my other girls, we're in a place that the Lord shows his redemption and his restoration. And just this last year, she's in her second year of college today, but last year I went to be with her for 2 weeks. She's studying music down there in Tennessee, and I went to watch some of her concerts for the end of the year and help her pack up to come home for the summer. And as I was there, I just was really careful to not be in her space too much. And I voiced that. I said, honey, if I'm ever in your space too much, if you want me to leave or whatever, because I was cooking meals and kind of helping her do some stuff, just let me know. And she said, Mom, having you here lowers my stress level. I'm so glad that you're here right now.
Oh.
And that was just like a sweet, our relationship has definitely been mended through the years, but that was just a sweet little blessing from the Lord to say, you're doing the right thing and continue. And I feel like more than for me, it's for other moms listening to this story to hear that there is hope and that you can overcome and work through this through the Lord's help, and he will bless you for doing that. So I get emotional always telling that part of the story because it's beautiful, and there's so much goodness to look forward to, right? I mean, I have a 16-year-old who went to visit Enya, and she texted me this year. She's down there for a week, and she's like, Mom, you used to drive me crazy, but now I can't go a day without texting you.
Oh.
Like, well, you're gone for a week, but yes, I'm so glad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's sweet that the relationships you can develop with your kids when you start walking forward and overcoming and working through these things. So I know you all want to hear about what that looks like. So, but before I do, I've said a lot, so I'm going to give you some space.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being willing to share that because, like you said, it is vulnerable. And the thing is, so many women struggle with anger. And
Mhm.
it is so easy to feel like you're alone because it's not something that's really talked about. Like, I feel like when we hear the angry yelling, like sometimes that's projected on the man, but women are struggling with this. And it's so uncomfortable to talk about sometimes, but I just want to thank you for sharing your story because how beautiful is it that you can sit here on the other side and say, I have this daughter who's grown now and we have a beautiful relationship that has been restored and redeemed. And Just how cool is that that you and your daughter have been able to grow and process that with the Lord together? And that's just amazing. I love that so much. And I would just like, I mean, go ahead and dive in because I would love to know, how did you start working through that? What was your relationship with the Lord like through it? Yeah, just take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so important to know when you hear a story like this. It's, when you're like scrolling through something and you see the before and after pictures for weight loss, you're just like, "Ugh," and you're like, I'm trying, it's not working for me. What are they doing? And you try and you give up. I don't want people to hear this story and think that same thing. I really want you to know that if you continue walking forward, you absolutely will make progress and the Lord will bless you for that. It will be redeemed. What is that? He will restore the land that the locusts have eaten, right? And
Yes.
so, really, let's break down first of all, what's going on for us. We've got these emotions. We've got these five main emotions. We've got what? Anger, disgust, fear, sadness, and joy, right? And so I like to break it down to those main emotions that we have these things. They are in us. We can't cut off anger like we could cut off our right arm or whatever, right? It's something that's going to happen and we're going to feel it. And when we get sad, we cry. And when we're happy, we might laugh or smile. When we're disgusted, we're like, whatever, for us to think that anger is not going to produce an energy that comes out of us, like that feeling and that physical response, that is denying part of who God made us, right? So I want people
Yeah.
to know that being angry is not a sin. Feeling the anger is not a sin, and needing to release the anger, the feelings and the physical response that comes from it, that's not a sin either, except how do we release it? So we want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So we have that healthy, normal feeling of anger, and it's a speed bump for us to stop, check in, and go, what is going on for me? Why am I feeling this?
Mm.
What do I need to look at right now that's important, right? And then we look at what is destructive anger. That is where we're using our anger in sin. In Psalm 4:4, we've got David saying, be angry and do not sin. Meditate within your heart on your bed and be still. Like we've got biblical reference. There's other verses too, but that's one of my favorites because I use that in how we calm down in the heat of the moment. But
Mm.
again, we go back to destructive anger. What does that look like? I told you in my story a lot of what that looks like. It's belittling, it's threatening, it is screaming in rage, it is passive aggressive behavior where we're doing silent treatments or we're getting, we're teasing, but not in a nice way, right? Not in a fun way. We're actually being snarky about it. There's the physical abuse. Basically, it's whatever we're doing to try to control the situation and protect
Mm.
ourselves. So, where we're not taking responsibility for our feelings and working through it productively, we are allowing our feelings to take over and we're using them in a destructive way. And that type of anger will hurt our relationships, right? And so, we
Yeah.
want to use the anger in a way to help be productive in our relationships. Okay. So
Yeah.
one way that we do that is we look at our triggers. What are the things that are triggering us? And I have a free download for your listeners called the Trigger Tracker that they can download, and it asks questions like, what happened? Why were we angry? What was going on for us? Were we hormonal? Were we hungry? Did we not get enough sleep? Is there something else going on in our life that's triggering us to react in this way? Maybe we were scrolling and we got into a dopamine addiction, right? And our
Mm.
kids came and triggered us out of it. And now we're like angry at them for it, right? So
Yeah.
we have to look at all of these like holistically, what's going on for us. And then we can go, okay, what do we want this to look like next time? What are some of the things that were going on that I can prepare better for or be aware of? And that's the biggest part of the trigger tracker and looking at our triggers is the more awareness we bring to these things, the more awareness we have when we have to walk through them again, because we will, right? Just
Yeah.
because we're aware of them doesn't mean they're going to go away. So it's creating awareness and recognizing we're going to have a feeling. How do we want this to go in the next time we experience this? Not that we'll be perfect about it, but I'm telling you, the more you kind of sit back sometimes and look, and I'm not saying we do this in the moment. We do this afterwards. We do this when we've calmed down. We give space to this trigger tracker.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a couple hours, maybe it's a day or two. We sit down and we look, or maybe you just sit down and do it when you know, okay, bedtime's a trigger for me. So we work through a
Mm.
trigger tracker of an event that we know that we recall, right? And we ask for forgiveness and we ask the Lord to give us strength and wisdom going forward and to help bring more awareness to those moments, right? So
Mm.
then this Bible verse I read to you, be angry and do not sin, meditate within your heart on your bed, right? And be still. So I have a thing that I call sit and pray, and it's an acronym. And so this is what we use when we're in the heat of the moment, when we're angry, we're starting to feel angry, frustrated, and we want to work through it in a more productive way. So we want to stop and separate if we can. If your kids are big enough that you can walk to the bathroom and shut the door, even if they follow you and are banging on the door, it's more safe if it's more safe for your kids and your relationship with your kids to have that door between you in the moment, that's okay. If you can't leave supervision, maybe you have little babies or something, then just move yourself in the room. Maybe you were sitting on the couch. Get up and walk to the other side of the room. Take a deep breath. So that's the sit and separate. Eyes inhale. Start inhaling, taking deep breaths. That calms our nervous system down. And then we want to start tuning in. What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? It's okay that I'm feeling angry, but why am I feeling angry? Do we need to switch activities? Was I doing something? Did I get distracted? Are we hungry? Are the kids hungry? Are we tired? What is it? What's
Yeah.
it? Hormones too are such a big piece for us women. Hormones will
Yes.
flood our system, and it's like we have to just wait. Like if you've had too much caffeine and you're jittery, you have to wait till it kind of passes through your system before your body starts to calm. Same thing with hormones. We get this flood of hormones and we have to wait for it to kind of resolve over the next few days for it to calm down, but we need to be aware that that's a big piece and that hormones will bring anxiety and anger and all these things, right? It'll take us to darker places.
Yeah.
So learning how to work with our hormones in a healthier way. Anyways, I digress. So the T is that tune in, just validating and tuning in what's going on for us. And then P is pray. So we want to ask the Lord not for patience. I always tell everyone, don't pray for patience. He will give you reasons to have patience. I pray for
Right.
strength. I pray for wisdom, right? David strengthened himself in the Lord. So strengthen yourself in the Lord in that moment and ask him to help you have clarity and peace, wisdom to work through what's going on. So then we have that whole sit and pray, and I shorten it to P because a bathroom's a great place to go. It's also a great place, like if you're with adults and you're starting to get upset, maybe there's family members that kind of irritate you. Going to the bathroom to do a sit and pray is a great thing. No one's going to question you going to the bathroom.
Right.
So you start to feel irritated or annoyed, go to the bathroom, do a sit and pray. And you can use sit and pray before triggers. So maybe bedtime,
Mm.
bedtime's usually a great example because it's winding
Oh,
down
yeah.
the day. Kids get amped up. Do a sit and pray, a pre-sit and pray is what I call it, before you call bedtime. Before it's time for bed, when the kids are doing whatever they're doing, take a moment and just prepare yourself. Okay, how do I want bedtime to go tonight? What happens? Here's plan A, here's plan B. This is how it usually goes when things get destructive. How do I want to work through this in a healthier way tonight? And you're strengthening yourself in the Lord in that moment, putting that armor of God on. Go to it's Ephesians 6. I can't remember the first start of the verse. I think it's like the
Yes.
20 or something. Yeah, where you're putting that armor of God on and maybe have that in a place in your bathroom or wherever your sit and pray is. Have that armor of God written out somewhere so you can kind of read and pray through that to strengthen yourself, right?
Mm.
And then let's say we've blown up. It's okay. You're not a horrible mom because you blew it. That's such a big thing to me. just sitting in that guilt, it's so easy to do. And the enemy wants you there because if he can keep you on a downward spiral, he's going to keep you going on that hamster wheel of that progression of anger and exploding, and it gets worse, right? So
Yes.
we want to take that moment and recover first with the Lord and repent. And then we want to go back to our whoever, our kids, our husband, or whoever it was that we got into the argument and blew up with. And the first thing we do is we want to take responsibility for our actions. And I want you to teach your kids, hey, it's okay that mommy was angry. It was not okay how mommy treated you when I was angry, right?
Mm,
So we want our kids to know those feelings are okay, but we have to work through our feelings in a healthier way, right? And
yeah.
so we come and we do that. We take responsibility for our actions, and then we go, hey, what was going on for you? How were you feeling? And you can do this with littles. I mean, I tell moms, if you got upset with your infant, it's okay. Like, it's not okay to like get upset at your infant, but go
Right.
back and just apologize, even though they may not understand you. It's still
Yeah.
you're getting into that habit, and the Lord will bless you for that, right?
Yes.
And they feel the hormones and all the things. So there's that. And then we want to, you know, just go through that recovery, talk to them about what's going on. And then afterwards, if your kids need a consequence, if it's your kids you blew up with, that's when you want to give them a consequence is after you've recovered. And my kids know in the heat of the moment, because I've told them if I ever say a threat when I'm angry, it doesn't mean anything. It's an empty threat. Please forgive me, and I'll recover with them later. But like, yeah, you lose your phone for a week. It's like, actually, we'll discuss your consequences when we're all calm, right?
Yeah.
So that's, the destructive anger, the healthy anger, the triggers, what we can do in the heat of the moment. How do we recover and recognize our kids need to see us make mistakes because they need to
Mm,
learn how to work through mistakes too and in a healthier way because they're going to grow up and make mistakes too. Nobody is going to be perfect. So if we can
yeah.
learn how to recover these things and work through them in healthier ways, even when we blow it, then we're showing our kids, how to release the shame and guilt to the Lord and walk forward, continuing to grow in Him.
Yeah. Wow, that is so good. I think that's so helpful too to know we're never going to be perfect. Our kids are never going to be perfect. Like we're all going to make mistakes. That's just a very like I feel like freeing way to parent is like I'm not trying to be perfect. I don't expect perfection from my kids, but I expect us to be honest with each other. And just the piece of being able to admit when you've been in the wrong is huge, and that can be healing for relationships on its own. I mean, I remember when my husband and I first got married. Oh man, I had gone through trauma and
Mm,
we were long distance for most of our relationship until we were engaged. So going from being long distance, I was safely to myself, independent, able to do my own thing, communicate but feel like I was secure far enough away, like arm's distance, right? Then we get
mm-hmm,
engaged, we start planning our wedding, we get married, and we're living together all the time. And all of a sudden, I have to confront all of these feelings face to face
mm,
with him. And it took us a long time to work through those things as well because kind of like you said, we grew up in very different backgrounds. He had the family that wasn't super confrontational, never raised their voice. Like if they did, it meant something was horribly, horribly wrong. And my family, on the other hand, we would raise our voice, but it was very like we express our aggression and then move past it. We're like we get frustrated for a minute and then we know it's fine. Like we can just brush it off and move past it. And that was foreign to him. And so it
mm.
took us a while to kind of get our rhythm, and then adding kids in the mix. Oh my goodness. Like that's just a lot of people to be in the process with you while you're figuring this out. So I know you said you started this journey with your daughter where now it's this beautiful relationship. And I think it's great you pointed out it wasn't this overnight fix, but I would love to hear kind of what it was like for you to be working through and healing with your husband and then also with your kids. What were those changes like?
Yeah. So the turning point for me was there was a night where Mike was trying to put Enya to bed, and she's screaming, getting more and more epic. And I actually was nursing Sky, our second kiddo at that time, in a room with the door shut, and usually that's a calming exercise, right? You're sitting there nursing your baby and all that. But I'm hearing this thing and I'm getting more and more upset. to the point where I finally just exploded and I scream at the top of my lungs for Enya to shut up and go to bed. And Sky stops nursing and she looks at me with this horrific little baby face and starts bawling. And I'm like, Enya needs help. That was my first thought. If Enya stops her tantrums, I won't get so upset. And so I still in that moment was not taking responsibility for my actions, thinking that I couldn't, for one, and was feeling alone and there was no hope. So I thought, okay, if we can help Enya, maybe that'll help me. So we took Enya to a therapist. The therapist observed Enya, and then she talked to me and Mike, and she's like, Enya's perfectly normal for her age and development. I'm like, well, but you're not at home with her. And she's like, I understand that, Natalie, but really, you need to be in here. And so I was like, wait, what? But at the same time, like really deep down inside, I was like, so you're telling me there might be hope for me, right? And so in that moment, by me accepting that, that was me taking responsibility for, okay, I'm going to start working through this. So I went through therapy. It was 4 years. It wasn't Christian. It was psychoanalysis. I was still pretty wobbling my faith at that point. We'd actually were switching churches and actually religions. We left a religion and came to just non-denominational. And so through that, that was a real like tumultuous time for me spiritually,
Mm.
but I still knew there was a God, right? And I continued to pray to him throughout the whole process. So I left therapy. It taught me a lot of great things. I understood a little bit more about why I did things, walked through a lot of my history with her, but I still had the pattern of destructive behavior. So although it was easing, it wasn't as destructive as it had been. There were still those moments that would get to me. And so I just continued to pray, and through just personal development, the Lord continued to bring me through different stages and things. Part of it was different businesses I was trying. He led me to life coaching school, Christian life coaching school. I went through that and got certified. I thought I was going to help moms organize things like their kitchen, but that really didn't go anywhere. And when I was talking to a friend in a mastermind, she's like, you got to come on my podcast and talk about our anger journey. We were talking about, you know, relating to anger and how we were overcoming it. So I shared
Yeah.
my story, and then mom started reaching out for help for that. And honestly, it was through helping others work through these things where the Lord did the most growing in my heart. There was accountability
Wow.
there. There was me help, like just giving myself to the Lord and saying, hey, this mama has a problem and I have no idea how to help her, Lord. You've got to take the wheel here. I mean, in the middle of coaching calls and be like, I don't know what to tell her.
Yeah.
And he would give me insight, right? And so, and through all of that, the most important thing, and the thing I learned in coaching school even, was you have to be spending regular time with the Lord, because if you don't recognize his voice, you won't know it's him talking to you. And it's by spending that time in the Word. I don't care if you only have 5 minutes, get in the Word and pray to the Lord, right? Take a
Yeah.
psalm and pray through the psalm. Take 5 minutes and start to be still and learn his voice so you can hear him working in your life. And it was through that time with him, he's grown me in my spiritual life with him. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect, though. I still make mistakes. I still have to recover with my kids. It certainly isn't like it used to be. I'm not checking out in rage. I'm not abusing my kids physically or with words, but there's definitely moments where I say something or make a mistake with them, right? And I need to recover. And it's just beautiful because the Lord restores that, right? And he brings you to
Yeah.
that. And spiritually, absolutely, there's moments even today that I might sit and go through doubt. I'm like, Lord, where are you? What's going on here? And he
Yeah.
quickly reminds me, doubt is a sin. You need to focus on faith. Faith pleases the Lord, right? And when we sit in doubt, and I'm telling you this because mamas out there who are in that dark place, doubting that he's even existing. I've been there. That place is, again, why does that leads us to sinning? That leads us to giving up. And through giving up, we continue being destructive and not just with other people in our life, but we do destructive things in our own life to our own selves, right?
Right.
So we want to put our eyes on the Lord, and that is a walk with them. I was working with a client yesterday. She said, I knew before I started working with you that I needed to spend more time with the Lord. And I tried, and you know, I just didn't make it a priority. And she said, because you make us make it a priority by working with you, like it's part of working with me. They have to spend time with the Lord. It's just consistently. I make them check in with me. She's
Mm,
like, I now recognize why it's so valuable and how it has helped me so much. Like, because yeah, I can sit here and coach you all day, but if you are not putting your time and your heart into the Lord's hands, He can't change you. And He's the one who's doing the work on your heart. I can't soften your heart. Only the Lord can do that.
right. Oh my goodness, that's really, really good and just so helpful to hear because I think a lot of the times when we experience anger, we think we can just remove the triggers, but it's really helpful to know and just being realistic and being honest about it. Like, there's always going to be triggers, there's always going to be something that will set off those feelings again of anger. But I think what you've shared about how even just doing the work in your own heart and like really giving yourself over to the Lord and being consistent and intentional about learning his voice and then listening in your own life is huge. And I think it's so important as well that you mentioned anger is an emotion that we feel, like it's a part of the way God designed us, so it's not a sin to feel anger. Because I
Mhm.
have heard a lot of people talk about the confusion they have with scriptures that talk about how God has anger, God has, wrath and those kinds of things. And so what was it like for you as you for the faith piece of it as you were like really connecting with the Lord through this? Were there specific insights you learned about his righteous anger that have translated now into your own perspective of anger? Because the reason I'm asking this is because I have talked with women who suppress that anger and they don't want to feel it at all because they feel like, no, even feeling anger is wrong, but it has a place when it's healthy and productive,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Lord has anger. He has the righteous anger. And you'll see that he uses that for a purpose. There's a purpose behind his anger. There's a purpose. He uses examples on what it means. It's not something that he's just flying off the handle and throwing the tables in the court, right?
Right.
He's demonstrating that this is not okay. And we need to when we are angry and we're sinning in our anger, we're separating ourselves from him, right? And
Mm,
the Lord, often we look at sin and it's like God just hates us because we're sinning. He's mad at us because we're sinning. It's like, no, God's heart is breaking because we're sinning, because sin separates us from him. When we
yeah.
choose to sin, then we are not walking with him. And so if you've had a kiddo at any stage, whether they're little toddlers or this is past the infant stage, but whether they're little toddlers or teenagers, I guess even infants sometimes are just like crying, you can't console them. But when a child walks away from you, it hurts. Like if you're wanting them, right? You try to pick them up and cuddle and they're like wiggle out of your arms, or you want to give your teenager a hug and they're like, don't touch me right now. It breaks your heart, right? And they're not sinning in that, but it's that same idea, right? It's that
Mm,
you can't connect with your child if they're telling you, I don't want you right now. And that's
right.
basically in our sin. We're telling God, I don't want to listen to you right now. And
Mm,
that's that heartbreaking. The Lord loves us. Like he loves us like we love our kids, and more than we can even imagine what that looks like. And we often get confused by his anger, looking at that like we've disappointed him. It's no. He just wants to hold us and cuddle us and walk with us and be with us all day. And when we sin, we actively take that step away from him, saying, "I don't want to be with you right now." Right?
yep.
And so the anger is righteous because it's not a wanting to destruct us anger, it's a wanting to love us anger. He's jealous. He wants us to put our eyes on him and focus there, right? Does
Yeah.
that kind of help
Yes,
answer that?
absolutely. Yes, it's helpful because there have been times in my own anger, like when I was trying to process through the my trauma and other things, like especially in the early years of our marriage, and I would go to therapy and just feel confused because I was like, people are getting frustrated by me being frustrated because I'm angry. And what am I supposed to do? Like never have hard days, is like where's the middle ground here? Like I'm going to feel frustrated. I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to have hard days. So for me it was just figuring out, okay, like Lord, if anger is a part of the way you wired us, if you wired us to be emotional beings, how can I process this in a healthy way? And so I love what you do with women because it's not so much it's not even about eliminating the feelings. It's not about suppressing. It's about learning to work through them in a way that's productive and healthy and doesn't cause disconnect in relationships. I just think that's so needed in this realm of women, like this time where women are being told, like, just keep it under the surface, keep it together, don't show how you're feeling, that kind of thing. And that is just not helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, something that he shared with me this week was a Bible verse. It's Isaiah 40. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It's Isaiah 40:11. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will carry the lambs in his arms, holding them close to his heart. He will gently lead the mother sheep with their young. And I just that verse was like so comforting to me in a moment where I was actually being challenged as a mother this last weekend. And then I was talking to I'm writing a book right now, and I'm talking to my book coach, Sandra Bird is her name. And she was telling me her husband talks about how, you know, we look at sheep and we're like, oh, fluffy, cute sheep. We think of that in the Bible when we're reading about sheep. Oh, yeah, I'm his sheep. And he's like, sheep aren't all that great. They're kind of dumb. They're kind of dirty. They wander off. You know, they
Yep.
they they're animals, right? And the Lord is comparing us to sheep, right? And he's not calling us stupid, but we read ourselves, like we look at the Israelites and what they were going through, and how many times you read their story and like, come on, you guys. But they
Right.
were in it, right? They were
Yep.
in it. And we're reading their story after the fact. They didn't get to read their story first, and neither do we.
Right.
And so we're in it. We are in the 40 years of being in the desert when we're walking through these trials as a mother. We're in that moment, and the Lord calls us his sheep, and he loves us. The shepherd, yeah, he knows the mess that the sheep are and how they wander off and all things, but he loves them so tenderly, and he will go search for each single one that wanders off. And that's what we
Yeah.
are, right? We're kind of a mess. We're not always smart about things. We wander from the Lord, and yet here he is holding us close to his heart and leading not just not just all of us, but he's like, makes mention here, leads the mother sheep with their young. He's got you. He's leading you, and he knows that you've got young wandering off and doing their own things, right?
Yeah.
And they're all his.
Yep.
So I hope that encourages you.
It is. It's beautiful. Well, and I think another piece of that too is just realizing that God's heart is tender towards us. Like he doesn't respond to our anger and frustration with equal anger and frustration. Like it's not an escalating thing where he sees us making mistakes and is just so angry and frustrated with us and wants to turn away. I always remember that verse where it talks about his kindness is what leads us to repentance. He's so
Yes.
gentle. He loves us and he wants us to be healthy. He wants us to have relationships that can thrive so that like he wants us to experience all the fullness of life that he has for us. And so I just think it's really sweet the way that even you said with your clients, you want them to prioritize that relationship with the Lord, because at the end of the day, we are always going to have triggers. We are always going to have emotions. And the Lord who created us is going to be the one who can tenderly walk us through that and connect us with the right resources. So I would just love for you to share, maybe if there's a woman listening and she's in the trenches right now, she's like, I have tried everything. I cannot figure out how to deal with my anger. What would you say is step one?
Hmm. Well, I have to say, very step one is ask the Lord to lead. Lord, lead me to the resources, to to the person, to the verse, whether it's your pastor, a friend you feel like you can confide in, or like a woman's Bible study, or if it's obviously, I'm here, you can come find me on the internet
Yes.
and tell me what's going on. It is sometimes it's easier to relate to someone who's actually gone through it, is going through it, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely take a step. Just know, first of all, doing nothing is going to continue taking you down that destructive cycle and path,
Yeah.
right? Anger gives foothold to the devil. So we need to be aware that if we're sitting there in our anger and our muck, and a lot of times what happens is we get angry with our kids or our husband or whoever, and then we're even more angry at ourselves for getting angry. It's this vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much behind our anger. It's not just like, okay, Lord, please take it away. He's going to lead you on a journey. And my clients go on a journey. They definitely go through a journey. We learn forgiveness. We go through mindset. We peel back layers of why we even get to this place in the first place. Why are our triggers even
Yeah.
triggering us? And so finding the resources to help you walk through kind of unpacking that and trusting the Lord through that journey. It isn't going to be an overnight thing. And
Yeah.
so it's something that I'm still learning today. He's still helping me learn. I'm never going to say I have arrived. I have figured a lot of things out, but it's all through him, and he's going to teach me a lot more. I've heard that parenting begins when your kids become adults, and I can believe that, I mean,
Wow.
I
Yep.
still call my mom, and my mom still has to go, Natalie, really? Like, oh, right?
I love
So
that. Yes.
reach out, find somebody you can talk to. If it's me, if it's somebody else, I don't care. I just want you not to stay stuck where you're at. Reach out to somebody and trust the process and trust the Lord's going to lead you in the right way.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for that. I'd love to know before we go as well if there's anything else specific that you'd want to say, maybe to a woman who is feeling the shame and guilt from the destruction her anger has caused.
Yeah. You know what? Jesus died for that. And when we hold on to our guilt and our shame, we're basically looking up at the cross and telling Jesus that what he did wasn't good enough for us. And so we really have to work on allowing him to help us release that guilt and shame. And again, it's not an overnight thing. Sometimes for some people, it can absolutely be a miraculous overnight thing.
Yeah.
And so absolutely don't stop praying for that. Pray and fast for that if you need to, but just know that the more you hold on to it, the more you are keeping that separation between you and Christ. Because full acceptance of Christ is accepting the gift that he gave you, and you did nothing to get it. He did this all of his free will, right? And so that's accepting the gift and saying thank you, and then asking him to help you unpack anything in that, like, because the guilt and shame can be wrapped up in certain traumas and things that we've experienced through our life as children and growing up, and just learning how to release that resentment and protecting of ourselves and accepting the gift that Christ gave us is really
Yeah.
important, and will help you when you release that. That is one of the biggest things for me when I released the guilt and shame, when I forgave the people in my life I needed to forgive. That has helped me walk forward in less of that place of tension that brings up that destructive anger. I'm not walking around in a place of trying to protect myself all the time because I'm afraid of the insecurities being let out or whatever it is. So again, as you can see, there's so much around it, but starting with, the Lord, just asking him to help you work through that guilt and shame will be huge in working with your kids and anger and whoever it is you might be getting angry with.
Yeah, that's amazing. And even just to hear now on the other side, the testimony, not only for you, but for your daughter as well, just your willingness to commit to the process and let the Lord do the work in your heart is going to trickle down for generations to come. So it is just amazing to see and like to hear your story. So thank you so much for being willing to share all of that with us. And I know we've barely unpacked it. There's, like you said, there's so much more to it. So would you just tell us before we go, where can everybody find you, connect with you, and learn how to work with you?
Absolutely. I'm at nataliehixson.com, and that's really the main place I hang out. I mean, I have a Pinterest, but you know, I'm not really on social media too much except to see what my kids are up to. So,
I-
yeah, you can come find me. You can download the trigger tracker there. I think you have a link for it as well.
Yes.
And I have a blog there, and you can sign up on the email list. When you get the trigger tracker, that's what you do, and you can hear updates. I am writing a book. It should be out this next year. So that will be helpful as well to the mamas who are looking for help.
Yes, that is so amazing. Well, like she said, guys, I will link everything, her free trigger tracker, as well as her website so you can get connected. But Natalie, I just have to say again, thank you so much for your time and for being willing to share, for being willing to do the work in your own life. So now you can help so many other women find the same healing and freedom. I just love it. And it's just amazing to see all God is doing and is going to continue to do with you. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have been here.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune into another episode of the By Words Show. I love having you here, and I am truly so thankful for your support. Don't forget to share a screenshot of this episode to let me know you were here, and quick favor, if you enjoyed this episode, would you take a second to leave a review? It really helps our community grow. If you want more, you can shop my books Waking Up and Love Is at thehannahhughes.com or on Amazon, and be sure to join my email list for all the latest news. I can't wait to chat again soon, but in the meantime, be sure to come connect with me on social media, and remember, I'm cheering you on.